Have you ever said something so catastrophically stupid that you felt your entire future crumbling in real time? I'm not talking about a small mistake. I'm talking about the kind of moment where your life literally divides into before and after, where you can pinpoint the exact second everything changed. For me, that moment happened at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. I know the exact time because I looked at my phone right before I opened my mouth and detonated my entire career. 90 seconds. That's how long it took me to go from a promising young professional to someone actively updating their LinkedIn profile in a bathroom stall, trying not to have a panic attack. And the worst part? I deserved every second of what happened next. This is the story of how I committed career suicide at a water cooler while my boss listened to every single word. Let me take you back 6 hours before the incident. 8:47 a.m., Thursday morning team meeting. I walked into that conference room feeling pretty good about myself. I'd worked until midnight the night before, finishing a presentation for our biggest client, a luxury hotel chain that represented 40% of our agency's revenue. This was my chance to prove I belonged at the big kids table. My boss, Jennifer Martinez, was already there. Let me paint you a picture of Jennifer. 43 years old, former executive at a Fortune 500 company, the kind of woman who could silence a room just by walking into it. She wore power suits that probably cost more than my monthly rent, blood-red lipstick that never smudged, and these insanely high Louboutin heels that announced her presence 3 hallways away. Click, click, click. You always knew when Jennifer was coming. She had a reputation that preceded her. People called her the Ice Queen behind her back, the Terminator. One guy from accounting started calling her Jennifer Annihilator after she made him redo a budget report 7 times. But here's the thing. I thought I was different. I thought I'd cracked the code. She'd been mentoring me for 8 months, giving me bigger projects, more responsibility. I genuinely believed I was becoming her protege. So when I pulled up my presentation that morning, I was confident. Maybe too confident. Jennifer dimmed the lights. "Let's see what you've got," she said. I clicked to the first slide, my title slide, the one I'd spent 30 minutes perfecting the font on. 3 seconds of silence. "Is that Comic Sans?" Jennifer's voice cut through the darkness. My stomach dropped. It's a playful, approachable, it's Comic Sans for a luxury hotel chain presentation." Her voice was flat, deadly. I thought it would make us seem more friendly, and next slide. For the next 25 minutes, Jennifer systematically destroyed my presentation. And I don't mean she gave constructive criticism. I mean she took a flamethrower to 18 hours of my work. Slide 2, the color scheme looks like a children's birthday party. Slide 5, this statistic is outdated. Did you even fact-check this? Slide 8, what is this, a meme? You put a meme in a client presentation? Slide 12, I'm going to stop you right here because I physically can't look at this anymore. The lights came back on. Everyone in the room was staring at their laptops, pretending to be invisible. My face felt like it was on fire. My colleague Tom was literally biting his lip to keep from laughing. Jennifer closed her laptop with a decisive snap. It's not college anymore, where you get participation points for showing up. This is a 6-figure account. This presentation, she gestured at the screen like it was contaminated, would have us laughed out of the room and blacklisted from every hotel chain in North America. She stood up. Click, click, click. Redo it. All of it. You have until Monday. And this time, try to remember you're a professional, not a YouTuber making content for 12-year-olds. She walked out. The door closed behind her with this final damning click. 20 seconds of silence. Then Tom whispered, "Dude, she just ended your whole career." For the next 5 hours, I stewed, and I mean stewed. I kept mentally replaying the meeting, and with each replay, I got angrier. Jennifer had humiliated me, in front of everyone. Over what? Some font choices? Some colors? Yeah, okay, the meme was probably a mistake, but was it really that bad? I started building a case against her in my head. You know how you do that thing where you have imaginary arguments and you win every time? That was me.
She's a tyrant. She's impossible to please. She gets off on making people feel small. She's probably miserable in her personal life and takes it out on everyone at work. By 2:30 p.m., I'd convinced myself that I was the victim of a toxic boss who had unrealistic expectations and no people skills. My friend Rachel from HR had walked by my desk earlier and asked if I was okay. "Jennifer can be tough," she said diplomatically, "but usually she means well." "Usually?" I snapped back. "She's psychotic." Rachel gave me this look, this warning look, but I was too fired up to care. At 2:45 p.m., I needed water. My mouth was dry from silently raging for 5 hours straight. I grabbed my water bottle and headed to the break room. And that's when I saw Sarah. Sarah Chen, 29 years old, senior account manager, and the closest thing I had to an ally in that office. We'd bonded for lunch about 3 months earlier when we both admitted we found Jennifer intimidating. She was making coffee when I walked in, and the second she saw my face, she knew. "I heard about the meeting," she said quietly, glancing toward the hallway. "Are you okay?" And here's where everything went wrong. A normal person would have said, "Yeah, I'm fine," and moved on. A smart person would have kept their mouth shut, gotten their water, and gone back to their desk. But I was running on 5 hours of accumulated rage, humiliation, and self-righteousness. I was a powder keg, and Sarah's sympathy was the spark. "I am so done with Jennifer," I said, my voice sharp with venom. "Like, completely done." Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "Maybe we should—" "No, seriously, I need to say this or I'm going to explode." I was filling my water bottle, my hands shaking with anger. "She's a complete nightmare. Did you see what she did in that meeting? She didn't just criticize my work. She tried to destroy me as a person." "She can be intense," she started. "Intense?" I let out a bitter laugh. "She's a sadist. I genuinely think she gets sexual pleasure from crushing people's souls. It's like a fetish for her." Sarah's face went pale. "Oh my God," she said. "Okay, that's—" But I was on a roll now. The floodgates had opened, and 5 hours of toxic thoughts came pouring out like sewage. "And you know what? I think she's threatened by me. Yeah, think about it. I'm younger, I have fresh ideas, I actually understand what clients want in 2024. She's stuck in this 1990s corporate dinosaur mentality, where everything has to be boring and lifeless." I was pacing now, gesturing wildly with my water bottle. "Those ridiculous heels she wears, the power suits, the red lipstick that makes her look like she's about to suck someone's blood, it's all compensation. She's insecure, she knows she's losing relevance, so she has to dress like a dominatrix and terrorize people to feel important." "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, and her face had gone from pale to gray. "And another thing," I was really going now, voice getting louder, "I've seen her make mistakes too. Remember the Henderson account? She completely blanked on that meeting. But does anyone call her out? No, because everyone's too terrified to tell the Ice Queen that she's not actually perfect." I took a breath, feeling this sick sense of satisfaction. Finally, I'd said out loud what everyone was thinking. "She's a tyrant. She's probably miserable at home. I bet her husband left her because he couldn't stand living with a controlling, perfectionist robot who—" "What?" 2 words from directly behind me, in a voice I recognized immediately. Time didn't just stop, it shattered. You know that feeling in nightmares where you're trying to scream but no sound comes out? That's what happened to my entire body. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to run, but I was frozen like a deer in headlights. The voice came again, closer now. I could feel her presence behind me like a cold front. "Please, don't stop on my account. You were saying something about my husband leaving me." I turned around in slow motion. It felt like turning around to face a firing squad. Jennifer was standing approximately 4 feet behind me. She was holding a manila folder and had clearly been heading to the filing cabinets just past the break room entrance. Her face was completely neutral. No anger, no shock, just this terrible icy calm. But her eyes, oh God, her eyes were like looking into an Arctic wasteland. My voice came out as a croak. "Cat got your tongue? That's funny, because 30 seconds ago you had plenty to say. Something about me being a sadist, getting sexual pleasure from crushing people's souls, a dominatrix robot." Each word was delivered like a surgical strike, Clinical, precise, devastating. Sarah had literally backed into the corner, pressing herself against the wall like she wanted to phase through and disappear. Jennifer, I tried again.
I'm particularly fascinated by your psychological analysis, Jennifer continued, taking one step closer. Her heel clicked against the floor like a judge's gavel. The part about me being threatened by your fresh ideas and losing relevance, that was especially rich. My legs felt like they were going to give out. I could feel sweat breaking out on my forehead, my upper lip, the back of my neck. And just so we're clear, Jennifer said, her voice dropping to just above a whisper, which somehow made it even more terrifying. My husband didn't leave me. I'm a widow. He died 3 years ago from pancreatic cancer. But thank you for your concern about my personal life. The room tilted. I thought I might actually vomit. My office, right now. Jennifer turned and walked away. Click, click, click. Each footfall sounded like a countdown to my execution. The moment she was gone, Sarah let out a sound that was half gasp, half whimper. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Oh my God, she heard everything." I couldn't speak. I just stood there staring at the doorway, my water bottle forgotten in my hand. "How much did she hear?" I finally croaked. Sarah's expression answered the question. Everything. She'd heard absolutely everything.
The walk from the break room to Jennifer's office was the longest 50 feet of my life. My mind was racing through scenarios. She's going to fire me. Obviously, I'm fired. No, wait. Worse, she's going to call a company-wide meeting and fire me in front of everyone. Public execution. Or maybe she's calling security right now. I'm going to be escorted out in handcuffs like I stole office supplies. Should I just quit? Just run? Pack my desk and leave before she can fire me? People were staring at me as I walked past their cubicles. Tom actually mouthed, "Are you okay?" But I couldn't respond. I reached Jennifer's door. It was slightly ajar, and I could see her sitting behind her desk, perfectly still, waiting. I knocked. My knuckles barely made a sound. "Come in. Close the door behind you." I did. The click of the door closing felt like a cell door locking. "Sit." I sat. The chair felt like an electric chair. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clasp them together in my lap. Jennifer stared at me for what felt like an eternity. The silence was so heavy it had physical weight. "Do you know what I was doing before I walked past that break room?" Jennifer finally asked. I shook my head. I was coming from a meeting with David Brennan. David Brennan was the CEO of our company. My stomach dropped even further, which I didn't think was physically possible. We were discussing promotions, specifically junior employees who show promise and might be ready for increased responsibility. She paused. Your name came up. Past tense, came up. Past tense. David asked me if you thought you were ready for a senior account manager position. There's an opening on the tech accounts team. Better pay, better clients, better opportunities. I told him I'd think about it and give him my recommendation by end of day. She leaned forward, folding her hands on her desk. I was actually leaning toward recommending you. Despite the disaster this morning, despite your rookie mistakes, I saw potential in you. I was walking to get your file, she gestured to the manila folder, to review your performance metrics before making my final decision. I wanted to die, actually die, just cease to exist. And that's when I heard you, Jennifer continued, her voice still terrifyingly calm. I heard you call me a sadist, a dominatrix robot, a controlling perfectionist that even my imaginary ex-husband couldn't stand. You called my professional standards dinosaur mentality. You suggested I'm threatened by you. You mocked my appearance, my shoes, my lipstick. She paused, and something flickered across her face. Not anger, but something deeper. Hurt, maybe. disappointment. But do you know what the worst part was? It wasn't the insults. It was the glee in your voice, the satisfaction. You weren't just venting, you were performing. You were entertaining your audience. Sarah looked horrified, by the way, but you didn't even notice because you were too busy on your rant. Tears were forming in my eyes. I refused to let them fall. I didn't deserve the relief of crying. I'm going to tell you some things now, and you're going to listen without interrupting. Do you understand? Yes, I whispered. I wear these heels because when I was 25 years old, a client told me I looked like someone's little sister, not a professional marketer. He patted me on the head, literally patted my head like I was a child. So I bought the most expensive, highest heels I could afford, and I taught myself to walk in them without wobbling, because I needed every psychological advantage I could get in a male-dominated industry. She stood up, walked to her window, looked out at the city. The red lipstick? My mother wore red lipstick every single day of her adult life. She told me that a woman with red lipstick is a woman who knows what she wants. She died when I was 19. I wear it for her. My throat was so tight I could barely swallow. You think I'm a perfectionist? You're right, I am. You know why? Because 15 years ago, I had a boss who let me submit mediocre work to a client. Good enough, he said. The client noticed. They complained. My boss threw me under the bus and said I'd done the work without supervision. I almost lost my career because someone thought good enough was acceptable. She turned back to face me. The Henderson meeting? I didn't forget it. My 15-year-old daughter called from school having a panic attack. It was her first one. She thought she was dying. I left in the middle of the day to get her, but I didn't tell anyone because I'm a woman in leadership, and the second you admit your kids affect your work, people start questioning your commitment. I felt like I was being flayed alive. And my husband, her voice caught, just barely, but it caught. His name was Marcus. We were married for 12 years. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, diagnosed to death in 4 months. I was by his bedside when he died. That was 3 years ago. I came back to work after 1 week because sitting alone in our house was unbearable. This job, these standards, this structure, it's the only thing that kept me functional. A tear rolled down my cheek. I didn't even try to stop it. So when you stand in a break room and psychoanalyze me, mock me, reduce me to a caricature for entertainment, she paused, and now there was anger in her voice. Understand that you don't know a damn thing about me. The silence that followed was suffocating. I'm sorry, I said finally, and my voice broke. I'm so sorry. There's no excuse, none. I hurt and angry, and I said horrible things, unforgivable things, and I'm sorry. Are you sorry you said it, or sorry I heard it? The question was a knife, the same question as before, but now it cut so much deeper. Both, I admitted, tears flowing freely now. At first, I was just terrified you heard it, but now, God, now, I'm horrified that I even thought those things. I created this whole narrative about you in my head to make myself feel better about screwing up, and I didn't care if it was true. I didn't care if I was being cruel. I just wanted to feel justified. Jennifer stared at me for what felt like an hour. Do you know why I was hard on you this morning? I shook my head. Because that client presentation was actually pretty good. I looked up, shocked. The core ideas were solid. Your insights about their target demographic were sharp. The proposed campaign strategy was genuinely creative. She sat back down.
But the execution was sloppy, unprofessional. It looked like you'd spent 18 hours on the content and 18 minutes on the presentation itself, and I knew you could do better. She pulled out a folder, my file, and opened it. Look at this. Your first presentation 8 months ago. It was terrible, but each one after that got better. You listened to feedback, you improved, you showed growth. This morning's presentation wasn't a step forward, it was a step backward. And with a client this important, I couldn't let that slide. I understand, I said quietly. The problem is I pushed too hard. I let my own baggage about mediocrity and second chances cloud my delivery. I humiliated you in that meeting, and that wasn't fair. You deserved tough feedback, not public evisceration. I stared at her. Was she apologizing? But here's the difference between us, she continued. I would have pulled you aside afterward and apologized for my tone. I would have acknowledged that I went too far. What you did? You went and trashed me to a colleague. You didn't seek to understand. You didn't give me the benefit of the doubt. You just assumed the worst and ran with it. She was right. Completely, devastatingly right. So here's what's going to happen, Jennifer said. I'm going to ask you one question, and your answer will determine whether you still work here tomorrow, and I want you to really think before you answer. My heart was pounding. Do you want to be the kind of person who says those things about people? The question hit me like a truck. Not do you want to work here, not will you do better, but do you want to be that person? No, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. No, I don't. I hate that I said those things. I hate that I thought them. I want to be better than that. Jennifer studied my face for what felt like an hour. Okay, she finally said, then here's your chance. I didn't get the promotion, obviously, but I didn't get fired either. Jennifer gave me conditions: redo the presentation by Monday, attend a professional development workshop on workplace communication, write a formal apology, not to her, but to Sarah, who I'd put in an incredibly awkward position. And one more thing, she'd said as I stood to leave, the next time you have a problem with me, you come to me directly. Not the water cooler, not happy hour drinks with colleagues, me. That's what professionals do. I worked on that presentation for 72 hours straight. I researched luxury hotel marketing strategies. I studied competitor presentations. I learned proper design principles. I made it perfect. Monday morning, I presented it to Jennifer in her office. She watched the entire thing in silence. When she finished, she closed her laptop. Much better, she said. Then, after a pause, actually, this is excellent. This is the level I knew you were capable of. Those words meant more than any promotion could have. Over the next year, something shifted. I stopped seeing Jennifer as the ice queen and started seeing her as human, flawed, complicated, carrying her own weight. I watched her stay late to help struggling employees. I saw her fight tooth and nail for our bonuses during a bad quarter. I noticed she always knew when someone was having a rough day and would quietly check in. The heels, the lipstick, the high standards, they weren't armor against us. They were armor she needed for a world that had been harder on her than I ever understood. 6 months after the incident, I was working late. Everyone else had gone home. I walked past Jennifer's office and saw her sitting at her desk staring at a photo frame I'd never noticed before. I knocked softly. She looked up, quickly wiping her eyes. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, turning the frame toward me. It was a photo of her with a man, her late husband, I assumed, both of them laughing, younger, happier. "Today's his birthday," she said quietly. "Would have been 46. I didn't know what to say, so I just asked, "Do you want company or do you want to be alone?" She thought for a moment. Company might be nice. I sat down, and for the next hour, she told me about Marcus, their meet-cute at a coffee shop, their tiny apartment when they were broke, his terrible dad jokes, the way he'd slow dance with her in the kitchen. And I listened, really listened, the way I should have from the beginning. That's my story, the day I destroyed my career in 90 seconds and somehow survived. I still work at that company,
Jennifer moved to our West Coast office last year for a role that was too good to pass up. Before she left, she took me to lunch. "You've come a long way," she told me. "That day in the break room, I've never told you this, but I was about 30 seconds away from firing you." "What changed your mind?" I asked. "Your answer. When I asked you if you wanted to be that person, you could have made excuses, defended yourself, blamed me for pushing you, but you took ownership. That's when I knew you had a chance." She still wears red lipstick and ridiculous heels. I've never asked about them again. I don't need to. Here's what I learned. People are complicated. Everyone's carrying something you can't see. Your worst assumptions about someone are probably wrong, and the things you say when you think no one's listening, those reveal who you really are. I'm not going to tell you I never gossip. I'm human, but I think twice now. 3 times. I asked myself, do I want to be the person who says this? Usually, the answer is no. And as for water coolers, I'm extremely careful around them now. Actually, you know what? I just bring water from home. Some lessons you only learn by almost destroying everything. This was mine.